All right, so back for episode 2 in the What Would Wakeman Do series. So in the first series, you saw me take a comment where somebody asked me to compare the Mastercraft X22 to the Nautique G23. So in this video, I'm going to take a viewer's comment where they asked me to compare a Nautique G23 to a Malibu M220 and a Malibu M240. I've definitely got my opinions and thoughts on those different boats. So we'll go ahead and get into this. But before that, check this out. It's the end of October here, and we just got dumped on. There's probably about 4 inches of snow there. I think it's like 20 degrees out right now. But yeah, it is no longer a nice fall because we had a super nice fall here. I was actually golfing less than a week ago in my t-shirt and shorts. Now, I got a little chilly towards the end of that because it started getting dark on us. But during the day, most of the fall, most of September and October have been pretty beautiful. But yeah, we have now turned over, and now it is time to settle in and wait for spring. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep doing these videos where I tell you what would Wakeman do. So let's get into this. All right, so now I'm back in my studio here, aka my office. So like I said, I'm going to do a comparison that was requested by a viewer a while back. This is from 8 months ago, from the time we're recording this video. This is from @JordanHebner6884. So he said, we're in the middle of trying to decide between Malibu and Nautique. I would like to buy a G23 new or 1 year old, and also looking at the Malibu 220 or 240. He also said maybe an MXE. For this comparison, I'm going to go ahead and just compare the G23, the 220, and the 240. Because I'm not sure if he's referring to the 23 MXE or the 24 MXE. And I think in the next episode, I'm going to purposefully find an older comparison, a couple of boats that are older to compare, just to kind of mix it up. And just an FYI, if I do a comparison where I think the boats are very close, I'll definitely let you know that maybe performance to me is the same, but then I would just say, hey, choose the one you like the best as far as looks or something like that in that scenario, because I do think there are going to be some scenarios where it's pretty dang close, and then it would just be like, just choose the one you want. So anyways, let's get into this one here. Okay, so like last time, all I did was Google. First, I did the 2023 M220 specs. I just Googled 2023 Malibu M220 specs. I did the same thing with the 2023 Malibu M240. And I did the same thing with the 2023 Nautique G23. So because he said that he was looking for new, or the commenter said that they were looking for a new one or 1 year older, I'm just going to go ahead and assume 2023. So let's start out with the M220. So you can see it's 22 feet 5 inches. Max capacity is 15 people. We have a dry weight of 6,200 pounds. Fuel capacity of 79 gallons. Malibu seems to do a pretty good job of packing on the fuel. But this is one of those things that's like, yeah, it's cool that you get some extra fuel, but fuel burns off and you lose that weight as far as ballast goes. So you can it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, it's great that you can go a little longer out on the water, but it also kind of detracts from your ballast weight. So so it's cool, but it's also something that can be a negative as well. Then we have max factory ballast, which for Malibu they always include their power wedge as part of that, which is up to 1,500 pounds. So really, water weight, displacement, you take 1,500 pounds off of this. But I'll show you in my spreadsheet comparison what I do there. For engine, I'm going to assume that they're going to do a similar engine, although there is a catch. I don't think you would want to run the 240 without the supercharged engine. So that's going to be a little bit of a point that I make in a comparison. So this one, we're going to assume that it has a 450 engine or comparable to the G23 for comparison purposes. So now let's jump over to the M240. So M240 is a 24-foot boat. This is going to be the longest of the 3 boats. Max capacity is 17 people, also most capacity. Then we have dry weight, 7,500 pounds. Also going to be the heaviest boat for dry weight. We have 86 gallons of fuel. It's a lot. And then we have, but because of the supercharged engine, it's also going to be going through fuel faster. Typically, sometimes they can be somewhat efficient just because they're getting up on plane faster, things like that. Max factory ballast. So this is actually, I think, lower compared to the M220. I might be wrong. I'll have to get to the comparison sheet to check it out. But again, minus 1,500 for the power wedge. So it's kind of arguable whether or not that should be included in the displacement. I think it can be up to 1,500 pounds, but not at surf speeds, is my opinion. At wakeboard speeds, I do think it probably makes it up to 1,500 pounds, because it kind of acts like an upside down spoiler. A spoiler on a car causes downforce, and it's really kind of doing the same thing in a Malibu. That wedge is pulling you down in the water a little bit. All right, so this is the boat that is going to require, you can see there's only the one option for the supercharged engine. So let's pop over to the G23. So here we've got 23 feet in length. We've got 65 gallon fuel capacity, so the lowest of all three. 16 people, so right in between. The 220 was 15 people, the 240 was 17, and the G23 is 16 people. Max ballast 3650. Again, I'll show you that in the comparison. Then we have, we're going to assume the 450 for the 220 and the G23, and then we have 6,000 pounds of dry weight. So now I'm going to pop you over into my comparison spreadsheet, where I've got the three boats over here. I've got the three lengths, and so really let's talk about each one of these. So on length, obviously the bigger the boat, the more people you're going to be able to fit. The max people. I think a lot of times people are working with garage space constraints. So obviously the 24 is going to be the hardest to fit in a garage. The M220 is going to be the easiest to fit in the garage. So those are some thoughts there. Again, like I said in the last episode, the 23-footer seems to be the sweet spot. And I think if you look at it from a garage space perspective, you could essentially take the swim platform off and swing the tongue in on the trailer, and you'd probably be able to fit it in a 24-foot length garage space for winter storage or something like that. But in any case, it kind of depends. If you want more people, you're probably going to want the 24-footer, because it fits more people. Fuel capacity, obviously, I would say chances are you're going to be able to go a little longer in the Malibu boats, as far as being out on the lake, maybe for the whole weekend. It's kind of the way I look at these things, is like 2 full days on the water. You might be able to go a little further with the Malibus. Dry weight, you can see the winner of the dry weight is the M240, which is not unexpected. What is a little bit unexpected is the fact that M220 is 200 pounds heavier than the G23. So a little more water displacement there just by dry weight. So then we have max ballast. And what I've done here is I put the Malibu wedge down here, and I subtract, and I'm going to subtract it off of these. So let me do some math here really quick. It's kind of surprising that the M220 has more ballast capacity than the M240, but the M240 also has 1,300 pounds more in ballast weight. Okay, so isn't this interesting now? So now we've got pretty dang close between the G23 and the M220 on ballast capacity, and then lower on the M240. But if you take the two together, so now let's just do I'm going to do a quick total here. So if you take the two together, obviously the M240 is winning by a good amount, by almost 1,000 pounds, which is significant. The M220 is beating out the G23 by a little bit. But here's what I'll say. It really kind of depends on what you want to do as far as water displacement. I would say that you might get a bit taller wave from the M220 and M240. That's sort of my expectation. I would expect more push on the M240 than the other two, and taller on the M240. So if all you cared about was your surf wave and how big it is and how beefy it is, you want to have the biggest one out there, maybe the M240 based on just displacement specs. Okay, but I am here to tell you that I'm pretty certain that the M220 wave is probably pretty good, and I know the G23 wave is really good. So really, it's you kind of get into this scenario where it's like, man, are you just trying to have the biggest wave out there? And if you are, you're probably going to want the M240. But let's take some other things into consideration. And this is assuming that the 1,500 pounds isn't doing that much to it. So let's take that out of there just for a second so you can look at that. Or let's put the 1,500 back in. Oh. And then it'll give you a lot bigger numbers. But again, I think that wedge is only putting 1,500 pounds worth of displacement on it if you're at wakeboard speeds, not surf speeds. So that's kind of why I toggled that. But here's the thing about wakeboarding. 23-foot boats seem to be ideal for wakeboarding. So even though you might get, this much more ballast capacity out of the M220 and M240, I actually really believe the G23 is going to put out a better wakeboard wake than both of these boats. So just things to consider. So let's talk about engine. So these two are comparable in engine. I'm going to mark this one for engine just because the supercharged comes standard. You're going to pay more for it, but it allows you to push more weight, which gives you a bigger wave typically. Okay. You can do that same thing. You can put a bigger engine in the M220 and the G23. You can put the supercharged engine in these, but it doesn't really do anything else as far as total ballast capacity unless you add additional ballast capacity above the floor, which I'm not including in this comparison. So now let's move on to fit and finish. So basically what I'm saying is, M240 would definitely win out on this one. On the engine, and then fit and finish. So I'm giving Nautique the win on this one. If you've ever been in a Malibu and then been in a Nautique, you'll definitely notice the level of fit and finish. A good example would be open the engine hatch in a Malibu and compare that to opening an engine hatch in a Nautique. And one of the big things you'll notice in Nautique is they do a pretty dang good job of trying to keep all the water out of the dry areas. And Malibu, although they're probably getting better at this, the Malibus that I've owned, it seemed like they weren't putting a whole lot of thought into that because we're just not wasting time on it because there's not a spot on the boat that you can put your stuff. And if there was a rainstorm or something like that, or you took water over the bow or something, that it would keep it dry. So I'm going to give it fit and finish to Nautique. I think it's clear if you are able to get in both brands of boats that wins on fit and finish. Hull design, I actually think for wakeboarding the G23 wins there, but most of the time these days people care about surf waves. And I actually think the hull design on all three of these is pretty stellar for wave performance. And I think it really is cutting hairs and comes down to your preference of how you like your wave to be. The 2023 G23 wave is pretty awesome. I like it a lot, but I'm pretty sure that the M220 and the M240 waves are going to be pretty awesome too. So I'm not going to give any winner on this. I think it's probably pretty close based on preference. Okay, so resale value. So Malibu is known for having the most market share. They definitely pump out the most boats out of all the towboat brands. They have something like, I don't know, it's a high market share, like 30 to 50% market share. And the next closest one is like in the teens, which might be Nautique. I don't remember. It might be Mastercraft. I'm not sure. But they're not. The next one isn't even close. So what that means is there's just a lot more Malibus on the market, and that also means that when a buyer goes out to look for a wake boat, there's going to be a lot more Malibus available than there will be Nautiques. And Nautique definitely, in my experience, they definitely try to control the amount of boats that are going into the market. And for that reason, I think Nautique holds a better resale value. And when you buy a Nautique and go to resell it, because there's fewer Nautiques on the market, you're going to have a better resale value than if you bought a Malibu and then when you go to resell it, there'll be a lot more Malibus for a buyer to choose from. So for that one, I'm giving that to Nautique. All this being said, here are my thoughts. I think these are all great boats. I don't think one is just crazy better than the other in several ways, because I could put another factor in here that's cost, and definitely the M220 is going to be the cheapest one in here. And honestly, the M240 might be comparably priced to the G23. I'm not entirely sure about that, but I'm pretty certain that M220 is well below the G23 cost, which means, are you trying to get the best performance for your money? You're not worried about fit and finish, for example. You're not so worried about resale value. You're probably going to want to go with M220, maybe even M240, because I'm not sure what the price comparison is to the G23. So here's another scenario. Are you trying to get the biggest wave? Are you trying to get the biggest surf wave you can get? Between these three brands, I would say you probably need to go M240. Are you trying to be kind of smart about it because you're going to be getting into another boat, a little ways down the road, so you want to have really good resale value, you want to have that good fit and finish? Obviously you want the G23. Are you looking for the best wakeboard wake? So that would be me. Are you looking for the best wakeboard wake? I would definitely tell you to go with the G23. So I don't think there's a real clear winner here. I think based on what you're looking for specifically and what matters the most to you, that's what you should base your decision off of between these three boats. I think a lot of people in this scenario, because they're going to be looking for the best surf wave out there, or I think it's going to be one of two things. I think you're either going to be you're going to have somebody who's looking for the best surf wave out there, and they're going to go for the M240, or you're going to have somebody who's looking for the lowest cost for really good surf performance. And then they're going to go for the M220. And they might also go for the M220 because it fits in their garage. So that's another factor. There might be people who go for the G23 because it's so closely priced to the M240, but they love the look of the G23 a lot better. So those are my thoughts, and that's the information I'm going to provide you in this episode of What Would Wakeman Do? But stay tuned for the next episode, because I think I'm going to pick an older boat comparison, and then we'll dive into some of the wake shaper and ballast upgrade options that would help me choose on things like that. All right, I hope this video helped you. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you have any thoughts on this video or ideas for future videos, please leave those in the comments below. Don't forget, I'll take all the comments I can get on what boat comparisons, or maybe even just wake sports scenarios. I'll give my opinions on anything. So maybe it's comparing some surfboards or some wakeboards, or or foils or something like that. Maybe it's even like comparing water ballast to steel shot or lead ballast, things like that. So anything counts. But anyways, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe and click on that notifications bell so you can be notified of my future videos. I'll see you next week.